So today we're going to touch on the 5 skills you'll need if you want to successfully make the jump from sim racing to real racing. And for those who don't know, I made this exact transition back in 2020. After winning the world's fastest gamer competition, the prize was a full season of GT3 racing in British GT. And I've been racing on and off in GT World Challenge ever since, so I know what it takes. Before we get into this though, we're not going to mention money, wealth, that sort of thing as one of the skills. I can imagine a lot of you are going to flood the comments with, oh yeah, but you need money and to race in real life, and we know that to an extent. You do need financial support to race, we know that, but today we're going to forget about that. So yeah, if you're quick on the sim and you possess all the core skills to get results within high-level sim racing esports or league racing, stuff like raw pace, consistency, you're good under pressure, good racecraft, and then if you develop or possess the skills we're going to touch on in this video, then you'll be very well equipped as a driver to succeed in real racing. Of course, some of these skills can be learned and taught easier than others. That's definitely a thing. But anyways, enough chat, let's get into it. What are the 5 skills you need to jump from sim racing to real racing? Let's have a look. Okay, so the first skill we're going to talk about, and it's arguably the most important, is adaptability. The ability to be comfortable in the most uncomfortable situations. In sim racing, you don't have to be that adaptable. Usually you'll practice the exact grip, the exact setup in the car on that track and get a very, very, very good feeling on what that car and track will feel like before even going into that competitive sim race. I mean, I've literally thrown tens of hours into prep before a sim race before. Le Mans Virtual comes to mind, the 24 hours of Le Mans Virtual. I've literally thrown a month and a half, 2 months of prep just for one race, so I know pretty much every scenario that's going to pop up, I'll be prepped for. And yeah, in real life, it's sort of the opposite, to be honest. I mean, you get very little track time. You know, if I think of a few examples, so you might not get a new tyre run until the actual qualifying, and that was the case last year for me at Spa. There was plans for me to do a new tyre run in practice, but with red flags and stuff, I didn't get the chance to do that. So my first feeling of a brand new tyre on the McLaren at Spa was in the actual quali. So I was under driving quite a lot because I just did not expect to have the grip that there was available. You might get in the car and the steering's offset to the left, because sometimes that does happen when the mechanics are working on the car and it's not always perfectly straight. I think you'll see this in some of my driver's eye onboard videos. The steering can sometimes be kinked to the left or the right. You might get in the car and when your teammate straps you in at a pit stop, he might get the seat belts caught over one of your nuts and then he'll tighten it and then you'll have a crushed nut for the entire stint, which, yeah, that is something you can definitely not prepare for unless you're really committed in your sim prep. You could probably replicate it. I'm not sure that I would advise that, but another one, it might start raining in the middle of your race stint and you may have not driven that car in the wet ever. So your first experience in the wet could be during a race. So there's all these things you can't prepare for. And so having the ability to adapt and get on top of those situations as quickly as possible, it will just serve you very well in real racing. You'll have such an advantage over a lot of people who can't adapt. Plus there is literally a million different scenarios that can pop up. And yeah, you need to be ready. So the next skill you need is communication. So it's as much your job to communicate with the team as it is to drive the car quickly. A few examples of this. So if there's any technical issues with the car and say like an alarm comes up on the dash, you need to be able to communicate that to the team like ASAP, just in case it's like a really, really bad technical issue. Another example, so say you're in the car, come to a pit stop, you get out and the next driver gets in, you need to be able to communicate with the driver at the pit stop, just in case there's anything he should know. For example, say it's really slippy at turn 7 and it could catch him out. Just letting him know that before he gets in is good information for him to have. Or say there's a massive puddle at turn 4, he needs to know that, really, otherwise it could catch him out. And yeah, being able to do this also builds a lot of trust with the team. So when I first made the jump in 2020, I was pretty mute. I didn't really say that much. I was quite quiet, typical gamer. And I felt like no one trusted me as a result. So I had this sort of extra pressure on me. I felt everyone's nerves for me, which just makes things a bit less comfortable. It just adds extra pressure. And so yeah, getting to know the team around you individually, I suppose, helps build their confidence in you. And an example of how this affected me negatively would be at the start of my British GT season at Donington round 2. The track was damp and it had stopped raining, so it was drying. I was starting the race, but I was still very quiet at the time. I wasn't really that good communicating and I was quite new to the team, obviously. And there was still, I suppose, a bit of a stigma around me being the gamer and everyone probably thought I'm an accident waiting to happen sort of thing. And yeah, most of the grid went on slicks because it was drying and it would be sketchy on the first couple of laps with all the damp patches and stuff. But for the rest of the race, they would come good. And that was was the optimal strategy. But because the team didn't trust me, combined with the fact I didn't say anything, I didn't communicate with the team we should go on slicks, I didn't push for that, we chose wets. I mean, on the first lap, I looked like a hero. I was going around the outside of factory drivers, and in the moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm Ayrton Senna. But then 2 or 3 laps in, they start to overheat, the slicks come good, and I pretty much finished that stint at the back because, yeah, we overheated the wets. So yeah, moral of the story, make sure you communicate. So the next skill is organisation. So having good organisation skills can only help when it comes to real racing. It sounds like an obvious one, but generally through my experience as sim racers, a lot of us tend to be very unorganised. At least I was not organised at all when I first made the jump from sim to real. For example, you can't be misplacing your kit. If you can't find your helmet in time for your stint, you're not going to be able to jump in the car and drive and race. So that's an obvious one. If your time management's rubbish, say you get your kit on last minute before you jump in the car, you'll be more rushed, more stressed, and your heart rate will increase. And when the pit stop comes around, you'll be more likely to make a mistake by flapping around with the seat belts, and maybe you'll take really long and lose the car lots of time at the pit stop. Or if you do the pit stop fine, you'll get out on track, and because your heart rate will be higher and you'll be more stressed, you might make a mistake. So even if you don't think it, you will be flapping. So if you just do things ahead of time and you're nice and organised, it just makes everything way more chill. In my specific case, if I forget to take my motion sickness tablets before my stint and the safety car comes out, I know immediately I'm going to get queasy, I'm going to feel sick, it's going to impact my performance, and it's such an easy thing to do to forget to take those tablets. I don't take them day to day, it's just for when I get into a race car. So there's all these things that if you forget to do one of them, it can really mess up your entire weekend, you know? Plus, teams and manufacturers will rate you higher if you just are organised and have your shit together, because that's what they want from the people they employ. So being organised, it will stand you in good stead. So make sure you're organised. Right, so the next one is fitness, and having good fitness is definitely a skill I think a lot of you would expect to see in this sort of video. And for motorsport, it is a certain type of fitness, and you could call it racing driver fitness maybe, if that's what you want to call it. So the first thing is you need to be fairly light. So 75 kilos is in and around the perfect weight. And generally speaking to other factory drivers, they say that they want to be roughly 80 kilos with kit. So helmet, suit, all in they're 80 kilos. So yeah, as well as that, you need good cardio fitness. So going for runs, going for bike rides, you need good endurance. I mean, this is dependent on the series you're racing in. So for example, if you're racing in WEC or GT World Challenge Endurance, where you could be in the car for 2 or 3 hours at a time, you need that endurance fitness as well. You're not looking to be too bulky because, muscles are quite heavy and they gas quickly as well. So you can actually get quite tired if you have lots of muscle. Also, having a strong neck is essential. I mean, this is a simple one, that the faster the car you're driving, the more G-force you're going to generate, so the stronger the neck needs to be. I mean, I wasn't training my neck at all up until last year. And what happens when your neck's too weak? It kills your trap and shoulder muscles. So because the neck's too weak, the load from the neck goes onto the shoulder and it ends up really, really hurting your shoulders. So I got out of the car and it was like, oh, the top of my shoulders just felt dead. And yeah, this only really gets exposed in dry conditions. In the wet, you're going so much slower, you don't really feel it. It's say if you do a full dry race stint, you'll really start to feel it. Now, of course, I mean, I've trained my neck after Spa. I did a lot of research and I found a trainer and we started training the neck. So in Jeddah, at the final round last year, it was absolutely fine. My neck was all good. Another thing, if you can implement it into your training, is a bit of heat training. So running, for example, with lots of layers on in the heat, just doing anything to prepare you for the hot temps, because in a closed cockpit like a GT3, it gets so hot. Like in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia last year, I was in the car for I think it was an hour and a half straight in one of the practice sessions, and it was in the afternoon, so it was still really hot. It was like 35 degrees ambient, but in the cockpit, it was probably around 55, 60 degrees ambient. And to add to that, I didn't have any drinks bottle, so I had no fluids, and we were stationary for quite a lot of it because of red flags. So we'd do a few laps, come in, sit there, and when there's no airflow, it gets even hotter with the heat soak and stuff. I just remember just before I got out of the car, I was like on the brink of passing out. I must have been like 1 or 2% away from passing out. It was really rough. And of course, then if we just generally sum it up, so the faster the car you're driving, the more intense the training we've just spoken about needs to be. So the final skill I've put into this video, and I wasn't sure at first if it was a skill, but ChatGPT did confirm it was a skill. So that's enough for me. And the skill is bravery. How big are your cojones? It is a cliche. You often hear people say you can't hit the escape button and reset the car in real life, but it is true. That entire concept does change everything. And you don't really feel that until you're out on track and you're in the moment. You're like, damn, this is actually real. So yeah, at first the speed will be a bit daunting. To be honest, I'm not sure how you teach this skill. Bravery. I think experience desensitizes you from it, to be honest. I mean, if I compare the beginning of 2020 in a GT3 where it was very, very fast, now GT3s don't really feel that fast for me anymore. Like, my body's calibrated to know what that should feel like. So there's that side of it. There is also two other areas, I think, for this. And the first one being having the bravery to put your body on the line, because you can get hurt, as we know. To be honest though, I've never really suffered from that issue. It never crosses my mind. I never get worried about getting hurt, just the way I am. And I think a lot of drivers are like this, to be honest. But there's also the bravery to put money on the line, money in the form of crash damage. And to be honest, that's always been the worst thing for me. I've never had an infinite amount of budget to cover crash damage, so it's always been a bit of a lingering thought, especially leading up to the weekend. You can really overthink that and it can make you feel more nervous than you should be. And yeah, it is hard to push 100% when that's a lingering thought in your mind. GT3s, for example, are insured, but the excess is still quite a lot of money. So it's between, depending on the team and the car, roughly £20,000 to £30,000 the excess will be, which if you have a big shunt, that'll soon tally up and you'll easily eat into that excess. Yeah, fortunately I can sit here and say I've never crashed a race car, so maybe that means I'm not pushing hard enough. Who knows? But yeah, touch wood, that streak continues. And so yeah, with bravery, it covers a few different areas, but if you want to succeed in real racing, you'll need it. But yeah, if you guys feel like I've missed anything or have any questions, get down in the comments below and I will get back to you. But fingers crossed, loads of you get the chance to race in real life or even test a real life race car if you haven't already. There really is nothing else like it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe if you did, and I will see you lot next time. Ciao for now.